بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم. It's a great honor, great privilege, as always, to be included, among the people that attend this class and frequent, this space. Sometimes I have to, pinch myself to remind myself that I'm not dreaming, that I get to come and just really hang out with people that I really appreciate and respect and just talk about Allah. And, that's my job. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. This is a class that we've been using to explore the names and attributes of Allah. Last week, we did Raqib and Shaheed. This week, we're doing one of my absolute most cherished names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Al-Haq, the truth or the real, Al-Haq. That's one of those names that produces almost shivers, because there's so much jalal, there's so much majesty, there's so much power in the name Al-Haq. And I don't know why, the first thing I thought about when thinking about Al-Haq, the truth or the real, was something that began as an irreverent thought and ended as a devotional thought. I said to myself, SubhanAllah, when thinking about Allah, when thinking about God, if you believe in an omnipotent God, right? You believe, because God, many ways to talk about God, but one very useful way to talk about God is you have the God of the philosophers. The God of the philosophers is the unmoved mover, meaning some people recognize the need for a first cause, meaning they recognize kind of a philosophical need to have a first cause from which other causes, derive, right? St. Augustine, the Christian theologian, famously said, everything that changes, and this is a natural observation, everything that changes in any way is being acted upon by something. Something is making a change, meaning everything that changes in any way is being acted upon by something. If one believes that, and this is what we observe in nature, it would require, oh, my beloved, mashallah, assalamu alaikum, mashallah, Samantha, assalamu alaikum. If we believe that, it requires what they call an infinite regress. And you have to say, this is changing because it's acted upon by this, and this is changing because it's acted upon by this, and this, and go on and on and on and on and on. And some people recognize that to believe that cycle would have to go back to infinitude, like over and over. So they make God kind of the point where things stop or start. But this God is not the God of miracles. It's not the God of revelation. It's not a God that you can appeal to through prayer. It's not a personal God. It's just, I recognize the necessity for some kind of uncaused cause, in as much as we are the effect of something, right? But then you have the God of the prophets. You have the God of the philosophers and the God of the prophets. The God of the prophets is at the same time transcendent, meaning God is radically different than anything you can conceive of. He transcends all of creation. None of creation can encompass God. Even the greatest creation, which is your mind and your heart, cannot completely encompass God. Right? But that God is also immanent, meaning that God is close. And that in and of itself is something miraculous, that the great creator God, the unfathomable, ineffable, inexpressible creator of the universe, is also a God that you can call on when you're having a difficult math test. God help me. Like creator of the universe, please, I got a flat tire. Help me get a makhraj out of this. At the same time, that's the God of the prophets, right? That's the God in whom we believe, not just an unmoved mover, a creator that creates but doesn't reveal, is not appealed to through prayer, is not present in the lives of people. And I thought to myself, I said, SubhanAllah, God is one of the only things that I can think of that human beings don't have a transactional or even conditional relationship with. Meaning, other entities can do things that revokes or causes them to forfeit their status. Meaning, like, a person might say, "This is my dad," but if he's abusive to me, then he's no longer my dad. Like, I don't even know. There's something that my father can do. He can cross a line at which I will cease to give him the respect of being my father, even if he is biologically my father. It's like he lost that, right? His role. There is something that my son can do. I have one son and two daughters that, yes, I will never be able to deny my biological connection to them. But there's a line that he can cross that, okay, la qadar Allah, la samah Allah. I pray that never happens. But that's there. And I was thinking, with God, the amazing thing is that there is no line. There is no conditional, no transactional relationship. What is happening in Gaza is atrocious. What is happening in Gaza is something that has tested and taxed many of our iman. But at the end of the day, we still come back to the fact that he's God and he's all powerful. And this is a sign. Because human beings, believe it or not, sometimes Muslims find this very hard to believe. Human beings have expressed great pragmatism in their relationship to the divine, to worship, and to deities. One of the features of idolatry was very pragmatic. People would worship a god. They would go into battle. And if they lost that battle, they would take the god and throw. Okay, you didn't work. Give me another. No, I'm not making this was not unusual. Or they would see a very prosperous tribe or a very prosperous people, and they were worshiping a certain god. The chief of that tribe might say, we need to start worshiping their God, because our God is not listening to us. And they would just go and just start worshiping their God. Like this was something that really happened. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're talking about the name Al-Haq, the real, the true. I was thinking, God is so real that many true believers in God could not imagine a scenario in which God would cease to be God. Right? It's not conditional. It's not like, if this happens, ain't no God. Right? Now I know if you do this, ain't no God. Forget it. It's not, there's no possibility. There's no possibility that a believing heart can conceive of. I once heard a story that a group of rabbis during the Holocaust were in a concentration camp, and they decided to put God on trial. Right? And at the end of the trial, they determined there was no God. This was a historical account that I read many years ago. That look at the fitna that we're experiencing. Look at what's happening to us. There's no God. That was it. But many believing hearts would never, ever arrive at such a conclusion because God is Al-Haq. God is the real. And the reason for that is simple. It's not even a devotional thing. Because if God is not real, then nothing else even really matters. If God is not real, nothing else even really matters. If God is not real, nothing else. And this is why the German philosopher Nietzsche was one of the only atheistic philosophers that really understood. See, a lot of them, I call them like Christians without belief in God. They wanted to keep the entire framework of Christianity in terms of the ethics, the morality, the law, the government, the civilization from an ordered universe. But just let's get rid of the God. We don't like the God. It makes us repress our sexuality. And we have to admit, the Catholic Church was a very overarching kind of religious institution. I mean, the Catholic Church used to control what vocations people could work in. Like, you can't be a candlemaker. Like the Catholic Church was, So one perhaps can understand that, okay, we want to keep some of this civilizational stuff, keep some of this moral stuff, keep some of this ethical stuff, but just get rid of the God. Now, Nietzsche understood if you get rid of the God, you have to get rid of the whole thing. If you get rid of the God, the only thing you're left with is human impulse. Wherever those impulses lead us, even if those impulses lead us to unconscionable places. Right? So what is charity? What is care for the weak? What is human rights? If there is no God, then might makes right. What are you afraid of? What is over you? If there's no God, there's no reckoning. Slavoj Žižek, the Slovenian philosopher, he rightly pointed out, look, if there's no God, then anything, then it's simply do what you can do without getting caught. Right? Just be efficient, just be careful. But there is no transcendent morality without God. Nothing is absolutely wrong. Some things are expedient and some things aren't. Period. So if there's no God, then really all of this is just an elegant dance to nothing, an elegant dance to nowhere. All of this, everything we're experiencing is just, much ado about nothing. But if there is a God, only then do our lives make sense. Only then does creation make sense. Only then does nature make sense. Only then does birth make sense, does death make sense. Without a God, all of this is just, kind of a toss-up, as it were. Oh, bismillah. Oh, yeah, let someone in. Okay, mashallah. Oh, mashallah. Right? So Allah's name, Allah's name, Al-Haq, Allah's name, the real, the true, is one of those things that I think is kind of pressed into it's pressed into our belief that our lives matter. Right? One book that I think every Muslim in America should read is called Islam Between East and West. Islam Between East and West by Ali Izetbegovic, who was the former president of Bosnia, right? Albanian or Bosnian? Okay. He was the former president of Bosnia, but he was also a very cultured, very learned man and a very good writer. And one of the things that I remember about that book is he said, when you're talking to people about the fact that God is a reality, the only thing you have to cite is ask them how they feel about themselves. Do you really feel like you're just a random being? Or do you feel that you have a special personality as a human being? Do you really feel like you're just an object like any other object? Because if there is no God, then there really is nothing special about human beings. But human beings don't believe that, and human beings don't live like that. The other thing that Izzat Begovich said is he said, you know, of course, affirming the possibility of microevolution, like the evolution of species, but that the human being must be a unique creation of God. He said, you know why? Because of consciousness and free will. He said, there is no way that a uniquely conscious creature can evolve from a creature that doesn't have that kind of consciousness. That doesn't happen, right? When people talk about evolution, they talk about appendages growing. They talk about a giraffe's neck lengthening. They talk about people becoming taller, shorter, becoming from being hunched over to being erect. All of those are possibilities that species can evolve that way. But to go from the consciousness of an animal to the consciousness of a human being, no, that is not a natural process. That free will and that consciousness must be installed in a creature. He says, this is the point at which Adam enters creation, when that consciousness is installed in a creature. You see? And all human beings live like that. And something he said that I thought was really interesting. He said, in the West, God and religion is a very contentious topic. But you know what isn't contentious? Art. Art is something we believe comes from the human consciousness. Animals don't produce art. You can give an elephant a paintbrush, and the elephant might even be able to paint a picture. But the elephant is not making art. The elephant is just imitating a human being. It's not that the elephant is actually looking at a sunset and sees this manifestation of something worthy of being captured in artistic form. Because elephants don't have that kind of consciousness. You can teach an elephant to imitate a human, and it can make a picture, but it's not really a piece of art. And then he said something that I never thought about. He said, this is the reason why nobody regards art forgeries as anything, because they don't really come from a real consciousness. They're just copies. See, if I show you something that's a forgery of art, the reason it's worthless is because it didn't really come from somebody's consciousness. An elephant can do that. I can tell a 3D printer can do that. Just, what makes it art is that it comes from this unique part of human beings that only we have. That's what makes it art. He says, nobody denies this. So when you look at a portrait, either you're looking at just a thing, or you're looking at the artist's attempt to capture the human spirit and the human soul. And if you believe that human beings have a soul, and if you believe that human beings are animated with some kind of unique spirit, then you must believe that God created them. There's no other way. Otherwise, they would just be, more complex animals. You must believe that God created them. And this was his way of affirming that God is Al-Haq. God is the real. Because if God isn't real, then, quite frankly, nothing else is real. The other meaning of Al-Haq that I think is very relevant is that many of us, we think about ourselves as Muslims possessing the truth. Correction. You are possessed by the truth. Right? You belong to Allah. You don't possess the truth. You are possessed by the truth. You see, you are possessed by the truth. You don't own the truth. Allah is true. Anyone that thinks that their particular understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has exhausted everything there is to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا يقدرون الله حق قدره. They have grossly underestimated what Allah is. Grossly underestimated what Allah is. You know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَمَنْ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لِنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا مَنْ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Whoever strives for God, God will guide him or her to his paths. Subul. Allah didn't say sabiya. He said subul. We will guide them to our paths. Now, I'm not in any way claiming that other religious traditions are as valid as Islam, but no, we're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about Allah. And Allah is bigger than my understanding of Allah. Right? Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, and we read this weekly, if all of the seas were ink, and all of the trees were aqlam, or pens, there would be no nufud. The words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not be expired. What? I was talking to a brother, he said it was that verse in the Quran that led to his conversion to Islam. That if all of the trees were pens and all of the seas were ink, those would be exhausted before the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about something so real, something so present, that for one person to think they have exhausted the understanding of what that is. No. Always reserve a space in your mind for that about Allah that you don't know. Always reserve a space in your mind. What is the wisdom of the story of Musa and the Khidr? Someone reportedly from Bani Israel asked Musa, is there anyone who knows more about God? Or in some riwayat, is there anyone who knows anything about God that you don't know? And Musa, in a knee-jerk fashion, without thinking about it, said, no. There's no one who knows something about Allah that I don't know. And then Allah instructed him to go and accompany Sayyidina Khidr. This is Musa min ulul azam, the greatest messengers of God. And not even he had an understanding of Allah that was exhaustive. No, don't ever say that. فوق كل ذي علم عليم. Surah Yusuf. Above everyone that possesses knowledge is someone that has more knowledge. Right? So I'm not saying that your religion is not true, but don't think, man, I know everything there is to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a famous story. There was one man who was a spiritual master. There was another man that was a faqih. He was a legal master. Both of them afforded the highest levels of respect in our religion. And the faqih took issue with some of the things done by the spiritual master. Like, I don't know. So they met. And the spiritual master asked him, هل أحط كل شيء علما? Do you encompass everything with your knowledge? هل أحط كل شيء علما? And the faqih said, طبعا لا. And the spiritual master said, أنا من الذي لم تحط. I am from those things that you don't know. I am from those things that you haven't encompassed. Which does not mean that we don't judge things according to their outward import. But there should be some part of you that always says, Wallahu a'lam. God knows best. There should be some that is a part of Allah being Al-Haq. Allah knows best. Everything that we attempt is an approximation of the truth. In as much as my human capacity, with all of its limitation, can do to represent the truth, this is what I have to offer. But the truth is above me. The truth is bigger than that. The truth is more than that. And it will always be, and it has always been. And the Prophet ﷺ, even he lived that way. That we are possessed by the truth. Inna lillahi. We are possessed by the truth. It's not that we are in possession of the truth. Like this, what I have, this is the truth. And if you don't have this, you don't have the truth. I have what Allah has allowed me to glean of the truth. And I will hold to that bin nawajid, with my molar teeth, with everything that I have, just whatever little corner I have of the haqq, following Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salam, I'm holding on to that for dear life and dear death. But I'm not claiming that this that I have, there's nothing else. The root of arrogance is someone who believes what they have, there's nothing else. There's nothing else. And this does not mean that we have to be relative morally. Imam Shafi'i, they asked him, first, two things Shafi'i said that, a heavy weight to bear. First thing he said was, I have never entered an argument or disagreement with anybody, except that my prayer was that God would make the truth manifest on their tongue, and I would have the honor of submitting to it. That's somebody who's qualified to argue. That I'm looking forward to somebody saying what's true so I can say, you know what? You're right. Look at how I submit to the truth. And then he said, if you see me arguing a point that isn't 100% clearly established by the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then I believe that I'm right with the possibility that I could be wrong. And the person that I'm arguing against, I believe that they're wrong with the possibility that they could be right. Right? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is ma'asumun min al-khat. He is divinely protected from error. You not. And you not. And I'm not. He's divinely protected from error. Not me. Imam Ghazali said in his face, anybody that adheres to a madhab or has a sheikh and would say to somebody, you're not a believer because you don't agree with the position of me or my school, they are closer to kufr than the person that they're accusing. Because you have taken your madhab or your sheikh and you have placed them in the seat that only Allah and His Messenger occupy. You see? Imam Malik lived his entire life in Medina. And someone told him about people who disagreed with him. He was a great scholar. And he said, Kalamu kull, everyone's speech, yuqbal wa yurad, illa sahib al-had al-qabr. Everybody's speech can be, some of it can be accepted, some of it can be rejected, except the one that's in that grave, referring to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anybody talking, some of it can be accepted, some of it can be rejected. Some people, if they tell you what their sheikh said and you say, well, maybe I disagree. What? Do you know who my sheikh is? You disagree. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. You disagree? My sheikh is the reason it rains in the Western Hemisphere. He's the Qutb al-Ghawth. If it weren't for my sheikh, all these crops out here would have shriveled up and died. You say you disagree with him. No, it's whoa. And you're not even doubting that his teacher is a righteous person. But I don't think he's in possession of the whole truth. I don't think he thinks he's in possession of the whole truth. No, inshallah, me, you, and your sheikh are possessed by the truth. The truth is over us. The truth is not something we conveniently wrap it and take it and put it in our pocket and say, okay, it's ours. We got this truth. It doesn't belong to anybody else. So Allah is Al-Haq. You possess Allah. So Allah has become something that you can objectify. You can possess. La ilaha illallah. Allah is over you. Don't ever forget that. Everything you do is approximations, conditional. Wallahu a'lam. Wallahu a'lam. Allah is Al-Haq. Allah is the true reality. The other aspect of Al-Haq, everything connected with Allah is real. Allah's promise, all of Allah's promises are true. They're all true. And you know, I was in an Uber on my way to the airport, and you know, mostly when I'm in taxis, I just listen. I just want to hear. I just want to see what people are thinking about, what they're reading, what they're concerned about. But there's a science to being an active listener. If you, especially a person is working, you know, in a professional capacity, if you express disagreement with what they say, then they tighten up. Like if somebody says, you know, this, Trump, you say, what? Whoa, you like Trump? No, just forget it. I'm here to do my job. I'm not here to have a political debate with anybody. But if you sit there and just say, I see where you're going with that. So that's kind of how you looking at it. I got all my lines. I always start with that little So that's where you. Now in my mind, I might be saying, man, this dude is out of his mind. That's crazy. I've never heard something so absurd in all of my life. But when I'm listening and I want somebody to open up to me, wow. It's good to know that some people are thinking about this now. You know, okay, I see where you're going. And so he was talking about all this stuff. He was talking about this black man telling me why he's a Trump supporter. Like, we got to get behind Trump for this next election. You know, and I just said, I see where you're going with this. He said, I guess they want me to believe that things are getting better under Biden. That's what they want me to believe. My gas was $2.15 when Trump was in office. Now my gas $5. I want Trump. I want some affordable gas. Biden going around, he talking, but he said an expression that I really liked. He said, so they got all this rhetoric, the Democrats, but I guess they want me to disbelieve my lying eyes. Yeah. I guess they got all this talk, but I guess they want me to disbelieve my lying eyes. No, I believe my eyes. I disbelieve what they say. You know, he's once I got him going, he jumping up on the soapbox. Now I said, you know, you better get into it. But when I exited the car, I had two things on my mind. One, damn, some of these people crazy as hell. The other thing I had on my mind is, what an expression. Right? You know, I speak for a living, so if I hear something like that, I can disbelieve my lying eyes. Yeah, put that in my pocket. I've already used it twice talking to my wife. I guess you want me to disbelieve my lying eyes. and it has a certain rhetorical force. Oh, okay, you want me to believe what you're saying. I guess you want me to disbelieve my lying eyes. Right? but the thing is, sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really telling you, disbelieve your lying eyes. Sometimes what you see is not true. So when Allah tells you the end of those who traffic in evil will be evil, they will have a grievous chastisement. But when you see them, they appear to have they appear to be winning. Right? The Israelis are celebrating their takeover of Khan Yunis. They appear to be, so this is what you're really seeing. You're seeing all of the world community besides South Africa, right? Basically, in Ireland, right? Turning a blind eye to what's happening. And your eyes might be telling you, they're victorious, they won. They're committing genocide and getting away with it. No, your eyes are lying. Your eyes are lying to you. No, disbelieve your lying eyes. Believe the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your eyes, sometimes your eyes can lie. In fact, this is, now this was an interesting plane ride. I got all this from the Confidence Uber drive. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I say, in fact, the Dajjal is all about the Antichrist, is all about disbelieving your lying eyes. There are many hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains that the Dajjal will have with him something that if you enter it, and it could be even like enter this kind of covenant with him, this kind of agreement with him, it appears to be a paradise. Don't you want this? Don't you want to live like this? Wouldn't you like to have this? But when people enter therein, they find out it's like a torment, it's like a punishment. Then he will have something that appears a hellacious condition. This is horrible. If you don't join me, your life is going to be like this. It's going to be horrible. And the people will say, no, 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 no. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, the believers, whether literate or illiterate, will clearly be able to see kafara, kufr, disbelief, written on the forehead of the Dajjal. No matter what he says, the people of faith will be able to see this is a lie. This is a lie. It appears to be something attractive, something desirable, but it is in fact a lie. In spite of the fact that it appears otherwise. Now, I don't know if you guys know what's going on with Taylor Swift right now. Right? Somebody put a deep fake together, a pornographic video of this pop star. And X, formerly Twitter, pulled the video. What I marveled at is that someone could put something, and it went viral. Somebody could there were things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about that those people accepted on faith. We're actually seeing people can simulate reality that isn't real. Even though your eyes are telling you, this is something real. I'm looking at it. So we're living at a time when your certainty cannot just come from what you see. There's not just certainty in what you see. You can literally, I have many people in this room that I have deep affection for, and I think I have true friendships with. If somebody saw a video of me doing something unbecoming of a religious leader, how many people would even call me and ask, wait, man, what is this, man? Vast majority of my community would believe it without even, oh, damn, man. We knew it was something. We knew it was something. We knew it was something. We didn't know that, he was sitting on, a boatload of heroin, man. We didn't know, we didn't know he was moving that diesel through. I saw the cars and stuff, but I didn't know. I thought I don't know. We didn't know. And I'm thinking to myself, why do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا? If an untrustworthy person comes to you with news, investigate it. Because what you're seeing could be false. I can say, Sonia, that is not me on that video, man. That's some kind of deep fake. That's not me. I know your eyes are telling you. Looks like you. Right? Looks like you. So my point is that the promise of Allah is even truer than what you see. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he was complaining of a stomach ache. He said, I got a terrible stomach ache. The Prophet ﷺ said, one second, let me make sure that my wife was expecting somebody to come to this class. I imagine we can't do it if you're down. Okay. Somebody came to the Prophet, they had a stomach ache. The Prophet said, Alayka bil asl. You should go and take some honey. The man went, he took the honey, he came back to the Prophet, Wallahi, it's worse now. And even in that, there's so many hadith of the Prophet when the point of this hadith, because remember something, I know I'm going on lots of tangents, but I'm gonna come back. I always come back. I come back. Sonya knows I'm coming back. I'm coming back. When you look at I was with my kids once. We were at this Muslim gathering in Lake Geneva. And afterward, they had s'mores, marshmallows, and stuff like that. And I presented at the conference, and I was telling my kids, "Hey man, can we get in the car? We gotta get back to Chicago, right?" And one of the brothers, a brother named Nadeem, he said, "No, you do realize that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ are just the good memories of the Sahaba. He said, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ are just the good memories of the Sahaba. Right? It wasn't that they set out to let's sit down and build a second legislative source of law in Islam. They were sitting and talking to each other about what they experienced with the Prophet ﷺ, and then people had to verify, grade, and authenticate those statements. But he said, let your children have some good memories around the deen. Right? So you have hadith, and I hope I'm not exploding your understanding of hadith. Everybody that has even a base level understanding of what's called hermeneutics, when somebody is mentioning something, there's a reason why they're mentioning it. It's not like they just sit down and say, let me think of everything I've ever heard from the Prophet. No, something is happening in their life. Something is going on that they want to recall this particular thing or this particular thing. So hadith don't just come like in a vacuum. Some Western scholars, they teach Muslims this first year of college, and some Muslims are like, oh my God, no, it's not. No, there's something going on in real life. And somebody, because of what is going on, is caused to remember. Oh, yeah, this is something I learned from the Prophet. He said this, he said that, he said that. But of course, they are selective in what it's not that they're saying this is everything I've ever heard from them. No, they're choosing. It's like when you sit down and talk about your grandfather if he's passed on. You're not saying everything you ever heard from your grandfather. It's something you think is appropriate for the situation. So you have so many hadith that were clearly mentioned for other reasons. But in my own, what I call ghetto interpretation, I see other things in them that I know they were not mentioned for. Right? And I've actually thought about even writing something. You have hadith that I know were mentioned for a certain reason, but I see something else in them. So like you have hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, somebody borrowed money, and they said they were borrowing it for the Prophet ﷺ. This man gave a gift to the Prophet. His name was Nu'ayman. He gave a gift to the Prophet with the money he borrowed in the name of the Prophet. The person from whom the money was borrowed came back to the Prophet and said, don't worry about, like, I'm not putting pressure on you about the money you owe, but I do need it. I'm not pressuring you. And the Prophet said, "Owe you? How do I owe you money?" He said, "No, man, he borrowed money and he told me that you needed it." He said, "What? Somebody call Nu'ayman right now." The Prophet said, "Did you borrow money in my name?" He said, "How else do you think I gave you a gift? Remember the gift I gave you? I want to do something nice for you. I don't have any money. I'm poor." And the Prophet started laughing. He started laughing. He was a light-hearted person. And then he paid the man and then gave Nu'ayman a gift. This was Muhammad sallallahu, right? But what I see in that hadith, the Prophet sallallahu could not have been an arrogant, tyrannical leader. Because the fact that the person had the confidence to say, "Hey, last and final messenger of God, can I get paid, man? Can I get my money?" Like that, to me, that's everything. Like that tells you everything you need to know about his personality. Yeah, God's last and final messenger, the one upon whom the Quran descends. Can I get my money? Please. That tells you everything about how we should be in leadership. If as a leader or a sheikh, you're somebody that you're beyond reproach, people couldn't even come to you and say, you blocked me in an apartment. Or I know you're a sheikh, I know you spend a lot of your time in dhikr, but after you finish making dhikr, can I please get my money? Please. Right? Yeah. That tells you everything about his personality. Right? So here, the Prophet ﷺ tells a man to take honey. He doesn't feel like, well, the messenger of God gave me this, and I can't say anything about it because then it would look like my faith is weak or like I don't believe in him. It's got to be good because it came from him. No, he wasn't that kind of person. You told me to take honey. Man, this honey was terrible. It made my stomach ache even worse. Do you know what you're doing? Right? The Prophet said, "Alayka bil asr, صدق الله العظيم وكذب بطنك." He said, take the honey. God Almighty has spoken the truth. Your stomach is lying, though. Your stomach is lying. God Almighty has spoken the truth. Your stomach is lying. Take the honey. He took honey a second time, even worse. I said, man, this thing is getting bad. I get you. I'm telling you, Allah has spoken the truth. Your stomach is lying. Like, take the honey a third time. Take the honey a third time, he was cured. Sometimes the promise of God is more real than even what you see. Right? Than even what you see. But you have to believe in the promise. And when you think about what it means for someone to make good on a promise. You know, one of my teachers, man, he told me, he said, as a person gets older, he said, man, they might have a slight but significant misgiving as they approach, you know, their later years. What if all of this was in vain? What if I've lived my life denying myself certain pleasures, certain kinds of enjoyment, certain experiences? I lived my life like this. And now at 84, 85, 79, 80, I couldn't even go back and experience those things. Like I really cashed in my chips on religious devotion. I'm 85 now. Even if I wanted to wild out, it's probably not going too far. It's going to go as far as the Viagra could take. It might not be going too far. And he says that a person might have a thought that all of this was in vain. What if there really is nothing? What if I did all of that? Praying, chastity, honesty, integrity. What if I'm just gonna be dead just like everybody else? I'm just gonna be dead, be nothing. And he said that in that moment, that man or woman must remind themselves God's promise is true. You think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you, Inna Allah la yudi'u ajra al-muhsinin. God does not cause the reward of those who do good to be lost. Don't think that anything you've done for the sake of God is just lost. Don't think that you've wasted your time. Don't think you've made a horrible decision to, leave off some of the pleasures of this world in preference to the next. You have actually made the best decision that any human being could ever make. And you will certainly get to cash in on your investment. Because Allah is not going to break his promise to you. Allah is not going to break his promise to you. One of the things that I love about the Quran is that the language of the Quran is so declarative. I remember thinking as somebody exploring Islam, look, if there is a God, this is definitely how God should speak, with this kind of definitiveness in his speech. No, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do for the righteous. This is how those who are unrighteous will be requited for their action. God is making you promises. God is not going to break his promise to you. God is not going to break his promise to you. He said, but everybody has that. He said, it's slight, but it's significant, this misgiving. Man, what if all of this was just something I did for psychological comfort? But when we die, we're all going into, the void, or we're all going back to kind of an essential nothingness. But all of this hisab and judgment, what if it really was just asatir al-awwalin? What if it really was just some stories that people would tell from the ancient times? Man, I wasted my entire life practicing this religion. And he said, some people will break under that pressure. Like they can't. And they'll grasp for whatever they can of the life of this world before exiting. He said, I've seen people, first row of Fajr, first row of dawn prayer, get to like the 70s and just run off to Vegas to gamble and do all kinds of things that shall remain in Vegas or something like that. And you would think, what happened? He didn't believe in the promise of Allah. That's what happened. That at some point he thought, what if all of this is, I better get what I can of the dunya. He who dies with the most toys wins. Right? And he tries to go for what he can at 75. No, this is really happening, people. But every day, reaffirm your belief in the promise of God. And look, Allah is not going to issue you a promise that he cannot keep or that he will not keep. And sometimes when you do things that are difficult for you, but things that are motivated by your devotion, it is okay to call on Allah by that. Allah, I'm doing this because I believe that your promise is true. I believe in your promise. And I believe that you are not going to betray your promise. So I'll give of my wealth to someone that is in need. When if I had a totally self-serving mentality, I would never give anybody anything. Right? I would never give anybody anything. Right? Looking out for me and maybe my children. Maybe. Right? They say that that's the difference between a bakhil and someone that is shahih. A bakhil is a person that's stingy, but will at least give to their children. That's bukhil. Bukhil is like, my kids, I take care of my kids. They're my kids. But if someone outside of her family, hell no. I'm like, I don't know you. Give something to the kids. Where? Kids are Ethiopians. They need to ask their father. I ain't got nothing. That's a bakhil. You stingy. This is despicable. But the shahih, this is somebody that's so stingy, they don't even give to their own family. That's someone that's shahih, so stingy out, not even their family, not even their wives and children. No, nobody. Abu Sufyan was famously a shahih. He was rich. Abu Sufyan was rich. He was famously like, Hind bint Utbah, his wife, had to come to the Prophet ﷺ in a face veil, and she did not cover her face. And she said, what should a woman do if her husband is so stingy, she doesn't have what she needs? The Prophet said, خُذِي مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Just take from his money, but reasonably. You don't have to ask him. Just take it. Book, are you getting this? No, I'm just kidding. Just Samantha, are you getting this? No, I'm just kidding. I actually know that your husband's you know what I'm saying? I actually know for a fact that your husband's too generous if you ask us. You know what I'm saying? But say, what if your husband is so stingy? He doesn't even take care of you. I said, just take the money. Just take what you want. Bil ma'ruf. Well, you don't have to ask. Just take it. But my point is that some people feel like the promise of Allah is something that they can't believe in. And it's like, no, the promise of Allah is true. And the last thing I'll say about Allah's promise is that there is nothing that gladdens. There is nothing that, provides relief like somebody fulfilling a promise. And there's nothing that disappoints more than somebody breaking a promise. Today, there was a good friend of mine some time ago. He thought that this startup was the thing. This is the one. This is the unicorn. He said, give me some money and I'm going to turn it into a lot of money for you. I said, well, I can't afford to lose this money. This is a very significant portion of what I had. I give you this. He said, I feel so strongly about this. I'll give you downside protection. This doesn't pan out, I personally will give this back to you. It didn't pan out. It didn't pan out. And and when he was pitching to us, he actually took us to a very nice place for dinner, my wife and I. And these kinds of decisions, I know that I'm a very intuitive, very passionate. My wife is the opposite. I like to always have her with me. Because you give me a good enough story in a dream, I'm like, that's the dream? We're gonna end extreme poverty in Africa? Let's do it. My wife is like, wait, hold on, wait. Even then she was reluctant. He is offering downside protection. Let's see. Didn't work out. And I said, I'm gonna have to cash in on the downside protection. And he's, oh man, everything is going so horribly. 2 years. I'm waiting for the downside protection. 2 years. Waiting for it. He fulfilled his promise to me today. And my respect for him, not that I have any money. Not that I have any money. No, I don't. But he fulfilled his promise to me today. And my respect for him, he sent me, I just said, thank you when the wire posted. And he said, I will be able to get a good night's sleep tonight. I said, me too. So would I. I haven't been thinking about either. You know what I'm saying? But it felt so good that, man, he said this. And it wasn't just something to get me to write the check. He really meant what he said. And it was 2 years. Because I thought, okay, things have gone down. We didn't, we pitched. VC didn't, they didn't invest in it. Let's get the downside protection. He said, oh, about the downside protection. I don't have anything. I said, what do you mean? And it was very tense. I would see him at Salat al-Eid. And there was no words spoken. It was just, it was very tense. And when today, check your account. So you really meant what you said, right? It was something that in my mind, I had started to think of it as a loss. Man, I can't believe I lost that much money. Oh, I can't believe I lost that much money. And of course, the other thing a husband is thinking, my wife is never gonna let me hear the end of this. You know that. And it's getting, look, I'm not out with my wife. Of course, it's come up a few times. And you invested in this stupid thing. Took our hard-earned money and put it in this foolishness. You didn't even understand it. a good brother. I thought he was a good brother. He gave me downside protection. He gave me downside protection. I didn't know he wasn't going to be able to make good on his promise. I know I'm not a good thespian, but it was really serious. So when he texted me this morning, check your account. The feeling was like, you really, because at some point when it stresses you. I'm going somewhere with this, by the way. It stresses you out. Just ask somebody every 2 months, hey man, is anything going on with that? At some point, you just say, because of the love, mashallah, it's gone. Forget it. So to get a surprise, take your account out. What? You were serious? I never doubted your integrity, actually. You know what I'm saying? I never doubted your integrity for a moment. You know what I'm saying? But I thought that feeling I had, multiply that by infinitude. That will be the feeling of people on Yom Qiyamah when they see the reward that Allah gives for righteousness. The relief when he said, check your account. You were serious? You really intended to fulfill your promise? Man, I had let that go. Multiply that by infinity. That is how the righteous will feel when they see Jannah. I thought, oh, and it feels so gratifying now. That is how the righteous will feel when they see Jannah. Ya your promise was true. It was true. Everything you said, everything that you said that you would do for our deeds and our iman, you intend to actually do? Allah. And I took in that moment this morning, like this is just a little preview of somebody fulfilling their word. Somebody being true. Like, bro, you were serious, man? Bro, I thought you were just somebody talking. Yeah, I give you downside protection. I got it. Downside protection. They come up with some nice terms of phrase, don't they? Like, I give you down. If this investment doesn't pan out, I personally guarantee everything you invest. I give you downside protection. I was looking at my wife and think, downside protection. It's like a gullible fool. He's giving us downside protection. Downside protection. Company goes belly up. Okay, man, it's time for the downside protection. About the downside protection, I don't have anything. How could you give me downside protection if you don't have anything? Well, of course, I thought the company was going to succeed. I thought I would need the downside protection. This is what a smart person knows. If you had all that money, why do you need my money? I thought he did it because he loved me. But my point is the feeling of somebody fulfilling their promise, bro. Similarly, the feeling of somebody lying to you. Shaitan is lying to the people, man. Shaitan is lying to them, telling them that some kind of salvation, some kind of satisfaction can be found in following these vanities. And when they come to learn, this was nothing. We don't have words like this in English. The closest we have is whoa, but nobody speaks like that anymore, so you can't feel it. This is the one place, look, nobody say this stuff publicly. This is the one place that I wish in a translation of the Quran you could use like a curse word or something like that. Because what they're really feeling when they see Jahannam, Allah says, yeah, laytani. Like, no. But it's probably closer in our kind of linguistic milieu, it's closer to a curse word. Oh, no, this is real? Oh, it's a In Arabic, it's like, yeah, laytani. Yeah, laytani, way hack. Oh, no. In English, I don't know of a modern word that isn't a curse word that conveys the same strength of emotion. That no. But what do people say when they experience great remorse? They see something in what is that? Whatever people say when they experience great remorse. No, it's like you can't like, you know, that is the word that we need in a modern translation of the Quran. Whatever that word is. Of course, we don't put anything that's below the dignity of the Quran. But whatever that word is, in Arabic, laytani, yeah, laytani, kun kuntu turaba. I wish that I was dust. Like I would rather not even be alive than have this. Like, oh no. So the promise of Allah is true. It's going to be like the feeling of somebody fulfilling their promise times infinity. The promise of shaitan is false. It is going to be like being cheated on, being betrayed, being lied to times infinity. And this is why many people say, if you don't have a real experience of life that has those ups and downs, you'll never be able to understand the Quran. Because Allah is saying too much that if you're someone that your whole life has just been sheltered, I've never experienced great joy, what does the description of paradise mean to you? If you've never, like some people, it's like, if you really have no love for the dunya, then the description of paradise means nothing to you. Allah is describing beauty, beautiful homes and beautiful clothes and beautiful food and beautiful hospitality and beautiful vistas and see. If that has no meaning to you, then you don't get it. Similarly, with Jahannam, the feeling of betrayal and frustration, and if you've never experienced that before, then you can't multiply it by infinity. But if you have, you can. Say, man, this was bad. Think about this feeling, like if somebody's ever been cheated on by a romantic partner. Think about that feeling times infinity. That's the people, the Ashab al-Shaitan, that's what they're going to feel. Oh, I thought you was true to me and you out here stepping out on me? Oh, it's a terrible feeling. Those of us that have felt it, no. It's a terrible feeling. So when Allah describes that feeling, ooh, I've been betrayed before. Allah is saying the people who follow shaitan will feel betrayed. I've been betrayed before. You've been betrayed before. Oh, it's a horrible feeling. And the people that Allah fulfills Allah fulfills His promise to them, they're gonna have an ecstatic joy. And I got just a little glimpse of that today, man. Check my account. What? SubhanAllah. You were serious? Babe, put that family vacation together. We're taking that this year. You know what I mean? So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wal asr inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. And these are reflections on Allah's name, Al-Haq, the truth, the real, the truth. SubhanAllah. Sometimes you have to disbelieve your lying eyes. I guess I'm supposed to just disbelieve my lying eyes. Sometimes. Jazakumullah khair.